Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me. Got a special guest today. Derek Davis of Babylon AD is joining us. Thanks so much for being here. So we were
My
actually,
pleasure, man.
yeah, we were supposed to meet up a couple weeks back, but you headed off to Mountain Fest. How was that?
Oh man, that was awesome. It was great playing with all the bands that we played with, Tesla, Joan
Yeah.
Jett. It was great, man. Larry, the promoter, treated us great. All his staff treated us great. Stayed at a nice hotel. Did a lot of
Oh, that's
partying.
great.
Did a lot of hanging out. Yeah, it was really
Great.
fun.
Probably, I mean, you must be fun seeing all those bands that you used to play with back in the day. You've
Yeah,
been this 37 years now, or at least
yeah,
with Babylon AD, I mean.
yeah. It was kind of strange seeing Night Ranger because we used to play with them quite a bit in the
Right.
back in the day because they're from the Bay Area too.
Okay, yeah.
Man, those guys have not lost anything. They're still kick ass. It's just like, you would think that after they've been together, another 10, 15 years longer than we have,
Right, right.
you think, as time goes by, maybe you lose a little bit. I got to tell you, man, those guys were just as good at any day of the week, just like Tesla. They
Yeah.
haven't lost anything, not lost anything at all.
And I would say the same thing for your band, for Babylon AD, man. Your brand new album, which is what we're here to talk about, Rome Wasn't Built in a Day, man. When I heard this thing, I couldn't believe it's been 7 years since your last. Sorry, I grabbed the I grabbed the wrong one there. Oh
Hey,
my,
that's okay. That's a good one too.
yeah, yeah. And it's in the other room. Because I've been listening to it so much. Yes, this one is good, but this is from 7 years back, so that was sort of my point. I had pulled it out to reference like
Oh, that's funny, man.
why has it been 7 years between albums?
Wait, hold on a second.
Should I go grab mine?
No. Here you go.
There it is.
That's
Yes,
what
yes.
that's what
Hey,
it looks
yours
like.
is signed. I want that one.
Yeah.
Mine's not signed. But yeah, when I heard the brand new album, it just blew my mind. You guys are sounding as good today as you did back in the day, back in '89 when your debut dropped and what you've continued to do since then. Did you have any idea that 37 years on, you'd still be doing this with Babylon AD?
Absolutely not. I mean, who knew? I mean,
Right.
just seems to fly by. There's been two or three different periods in our career where we just kind of went away because it just seemed like there wasn't really much traction or anything going on, and uh, everybody kind of did their own thing for a while.
Right.
Two or three different times there was a period of maybe 3 or 4 years in between.
Solo
But
albums?
right, there you go. That's one of the albums I did. Yeah. Um, so but this time it feels a little bit different because we've got a couple new members in the band, and
Yeah.
it's given us a good shot in the arm. Really upped our game. It almost feels like we're back together for the first time, to be honest with you. When
Well,
we're
and
recording
you've
or on
got
stage, yeah, you
yeah,
know.
and you've got Johnny Matthews returning. I mean, he's been back for a
Mhm.
little bit, but in terms of being on the album here, that was a new thing to me. And then you mentioned
Yeah.
that you had a couple new members too. So Dylan Soto on drums and Craig Pepe on bass, right? So how
Uh-huh.
did that all come together? Those meeting those guys and getting them in.
Well, so Ron Fresky lives in Modesto. Yeah, it's about maybe I don't know, a couple hours drive from where I live, in Pleasanton. But he was jamming with those guys, you
Okay.
know. And when we got approached by Tom Mathers for Paris Records to do another record,
Right.
I called up Ron and I said, "Well, all we got to do is get a drummer and a bass player." And he said, "I already got him. I already I,
Perfect.
I got him already, man. You're gonna love him." I said, "Really?" So me and Johnny Matthews went out and checked him out, and we practiced over at Ron's studio. And I swear, man, it was a trip because we played,
Yeah.
I think, 7 songs, all off the first album, and those guys nailed it perfect.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
awesome.
perfect. Just like if you would have closed your eyes, you thought you listened to the record.
Hmm.
So it wasn't hard to think of like try to get somebody else or do any kind of additions because Ron was right, man. Those guys had it together, and it was just and it's crazy because we used to do a lot of practice in the band. Used to do a lot of practice, and these guys they practice a lot, but a lot of times I'm not even there because they're just tightening up the music so well.
Right.
And even though when we play live, we probably do, depending on the show, anywhere between 12 and 16 songs. We probably have about 24 songs at any given time because
Mhm.
they know all the songs off every album, you
Well,
know?
that's good. You can mix it
So
up then and
yeah,
change it
so
to
every
the playlist
single
and
time we play a gig, I mix it up a little bit, throw 3 or 4 different songs in there,
right.
so they never get bored, you know?
Well, it certainly keeps it interesting for the fans too, who are
Yeah.
coming out, get to hear a deep cut or something like that that hasn't been played
Yeah, or
before.
sometimes you might get, hey, how come you didn't play this song or whatever, you know?
Right,
But well, that's because we substituted it for this one, you know?
right. Yeah, and you wouldn't
I
have heard
mean,
that one if we did this one.
yeah, it's like certain songs you gotta, you're gonna play. You're gonna play Kid Goes Wild, The Hammer Strings
Right,
Down, Bang, you're gonna play the tracks that are the hits, you know.
right.
But a lot of the other stuff on the other albums, we play a little bit off of every single album,
Mhm,
and keep it interesting. And we've been playing 5 or 6 songs off this new album, and it's been pretty amazing to see how many people, whenever we play these new
mhm,
songs, seem to know them just as well as
mhm.
our hit songs.
Well,
It's very
they're
strange,
that
man.
good. It's that good. It's not that it's something different from what you've been doing in the past. This sounds
Yeah,
like Babylon A.D.
yeah, they're singing right along with me, man. I'm just saying, wow, this is a trip. This has only been out like since May.
Mhm.
Uh, you know,
Very cool.
it was pretty cool.
Yeah, so also having John Matthews back with you, your original guitar player before Derek was in the band, or sorry,
Before
Danny was, yeah,
Danny was in
before
the band.
Danny
Yeah,
was in the
well,
band. How did he come
uh,
back into, you know,
well, actually, John's been in the band since 2017. He played on Revelation Highway, so he's been with us a good 6 or 7 years or whatever. But
right?
that was an easy transition because uh, we got an offer from Frontier's Record to do a deal
Hmm.
and to put a record out, and Danny was working on a new solo album, and I said, "You want to do it, man? Let's do it." And he said, man, I'm just too busy doing my own shit. Why don't you call Johnny up? You know,
Okay,
so we called John. John said, "Hell yeah, let's do it." So that came together real quick, because those guys are tight. They're good friends. So it was
okay. Well, that's
nothing.
good. At least, so no bad blood in there or anything like that. Just
No, there's no bad blood pumping.
that. Yeah, right. Great track off the second album.
Yeah.
Love that. Um, so yeah, with different lineup and all that sort of stuff. I mean, one of the things that I've noticed throughout actually all your albums is you've always got amazing ballads on them. You've got Desperate off the debut, So Savage the Heart off of the second album, Nothing Sacred. 1 Million Miles was awesome off of
Yeah,
Revolution
I love that
Highway, the
song.
previous album. And then this
Yeah.
one, and it's actually your new single that's out right now, Sometimes Love is Hell.
Hmm.
I don't know what's in your mind when you're doing these sort of things, but it just you seem to be able to continue to churn out those really amazing, moving, heartfelt. They're ballads, but there's a lot of power behind them. And
Yeah.
certainly, I mean, I get it, the whole power ballad thing, but I mean, it's just one of those things that every time they're very fascinating songs. Um, and I guess the question out of that, because I mean, certainly I'm enjoying all that, but the song Desperate, which was later covered by Baton Rouge on their album, do you know how
Yeah.
that came to be? Was that just something that they wanted to do, or did that
Yeah,
go
that
through
song's actually been covered by a couple different artists.
yeah,
Uh, I can't
but
remember
I
the
think it
woman's name.
showed the
She was a
power of the
solo artist.
song. Yeah,
And it's been covered by John Tesh might have covered it. Just a few people that covered it. But that came about just a phone call. Jack Pawnee called me up and said, "Hey, man, I'm producing Baton Rouge right now. We're in the studio, and we don't really have a ballad. Do you mind if they play Do Desperate?" I said, "Hey,
yeah,
why not?" You know what I mean? I'm
absolutely.
not going to say no. So
Well,
that was a pretty easy one.
yeah, that's very cool the way that that can happen. Just through connections, people producer
Mhm.
who worked with you guys, then working with Baton Rouge carries that over, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and I know that at least when I was hearing it on the radio with Baton Rouge, and then later finding it on your album, sort of making that connection between there and realizing that that brought me to your music more. It was just another way to hear something of your
Yeah.
music that was out there. Was more promotion, in essence, for what you were doing.
And so you actually heard Baton Rouge before you heard us,
I
heard our
did,
version.
yeah, or at
Wow,
least,
what a trip. Yeah,
yeah, at
because
least
theirs
as
was
far as
released about
that.
2 years later or something after. I think
Yeah,
theirs
I
was.
mean, I'm a bit younger, and I was born in '76. So when I was coming up through the whole glam metal scene and everything like that, I was really getting into it in
Um,
1991, where your debut came out in '89.
yeah,
And
right.
so um,
Actually came out 89 yesterday.
I
Uh,
know. I saw that. I couldn't believe it. So
yeah,
35 years.
fuck,
Congrats,
I can't
man. That
believe
is
it either,
awesome.
man.
Yeah, I was just scrolling through Brave Words, Bloody Knuckles, and they had an interview with you up talking about it, and I was like, oh my god, that was yesterday.
Yeah, crazy.
How cool is that? 35 years.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast time has flown by, but I think that album has stood the test of time.
Oh, it
You know?
certainly has. I think both that one and the second one, Nothing Sacred, has. They
Yeah,
sound
that was Tom
fantastic
Werman.
today.
Working with Tom Werman is like a dream. That was great, man.
Yeah. So now with those, I'm assuming you don't own the rights to those. Is that still the label that has those? Like no chance of getting a deluxe edition?
We don't, not yet, but
Oh,
next year, most people don't know this, but an artist can get their music back after 35 years.
okay.
Takes a little bit of
Wasn't aware of
finagling,
that.
but yes, that was a law that was passed maybe about 10 years ago or something like that. Where the instead of, because when you sign the record deal, it's like it says into what is it? Impunity, what's that word? It basically says forever.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I guess the courts and everything decided a long time ago, no, there is no such thing as forever. 35 years sounds long enough, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? In
So,
perpetuity, that's what it's called.
okay.
Yeah. So an artist can't be a slave to something.
Right. Forever on it.
Mhm.
So
So
any,
we'll have the masters back probably late next year.
oh, all right. Well, I hope to see something develop from that. That'll be really
Yeah,
cool.
we already have some big plans for that.
Okay. And I guess on that same idea or topic, and it was a separate question that I had, but I guess relating to this now is just that you have released some archival stuff over the years. I was just looking for this one
Yeah.
here, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
in terms of the debut, I guess maybe there's some archival stuff you'll be able to include along with that, or do you have any other stuff in the vaults that might see the light of day sometime?
I don't know. That's kind of we've thought about it quite a few times because we have some songs that we
Lost
that
sessions.
were written back in the day that we still have that are good quality. They're really good quality. And there were some songs that I wrote with like Jack Pawnee,
Right.
what's his name?
Okay.
Geez, there's 3 or 4 guys that I wrote with.
Right.
That Taylor Rhodes,
Yep.
Jeff Paris,
Hmm.
that I've got the demos to those, and those demos sound great,
Oh,
but they're for Babylon A.D. But
right.
for whatever reason, maybe they just weren't chosen for the album. So
Hmm.
we've always kind of thought like, well, we can still put that out, maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know how you'd really say that though. Songs written for Babylon A.D. I don't know.
Why not? Put
Yeah,
a,
maybe. Yeah, why not? I mean, it's my voice, and
put another solo album out.
yeah. Yeah, I'm working on a lot of stuff right now, solo stuff. I'm also working with Dan De La Rosa on a project with him and I.
Hmm.
It's really cool. We've been working on that for maybe about 6 months or so, just
Hmm.
here and there, in between the Babylon AD stuff.
Right.
So we're gonna put something out next year, but just the combination of me and him, De La
Okay.
Rosa, and it was like Simon and Garfunkel,
Right.
you know, but heavy rock.
Oh yeah, that sounds great. And
Yeah,
you've done a lot of projects as you mentioned. You've got American Blues Box,
I did that.
Moonshine, right? And
Yeah,
you've done 3 solo albums.
yeah.
I don't think a lot of people know that about you. That aside from Babylon AD, you've had your hands in a number of other things, and there's other music that they can
Yeah.
find about you.
Yeah, I've got Revolutionary Soul. I mean, to me, Revolutionary Soul was my most creative and the funnest
Hmm.
uh, and the most adventurous album I ever made. To be honest with you, because I grew up a kid listening to soul music.
Hmm.
James Brown, Al Green, Marvin Gaye, Bobby Womack. You know what I mean? That's my wheelhouse, really.
Right.
But being where I came up and grew up was like, well, you better like hard rock, man, unless you ain't gonna go nowhere. You know. So then and I gravitated to like Aerosmith and Montrose and stuff. So still had like a bluesy voice
Sure.
kind of thing.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And then of course I just started liking everything just like everybody else in high school, whoever
Mhm.
it may be, Boston, Kansas, ZZ Top, whatever, that kind of shit. So but I always wanted to make a soul album. So in 2017 I put that album out too,
Right.
Revolutionary Soul. And then of course I did the Revolt album, and then uh
Resonator Blues.
Resonator Blues. I did that one just a couple years ago. There's another thing I just wanted to do, playing all slide guitar and
Right?
listen to a lot of Elmore James and Son House and Muddy Waters. I don't like to just repeat myself, do the same old thing. I mean, I don't want to I'm not trying to brag or nothing, but I could write hard rock songs. I'm not going to say all day long, but they're a lot easier to write than something that's not in my wheelhouse.
Sure, certainly.
You know what I mean?
Stretching
Because
your
you got
wings.
just the big chords and you got the big chorus and here comes the lead guitar. It's kind of like there's a formula to it,
Mhm.
you know. And the blues, even though people think there's a formula to it, you can go a lot of different places on that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, same with soul music, you can go a lot of places,
Mhm.
you know, and
Yeah,
the type
well,
of music that we
it's
play.
interesting. It's interesting that you're able to stretch your wings out and do that. And that's what I like about the solo works that you've done and the other projects, the
Thank
blues
you.
projects and stuff, is that we get to hear a different side from you. And it's all stuff that is in the Babylon AD music. It's just
Yeah.
little elements of it here and there kind of thing. And then it's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
we do
Yeah.
this project, and I go, oh, I've heard that. I've heard, where that comes into play. So it just shows another
Yeah.
side.
It's funny because when we practice and stuff, a lot of times, almost every time, really, when we're practicing, I usually have an acoustic in my hand or something like that as we're doing acoustic, and I'll start just jamming a thing, but it's usually a funk thing or
Right.
a soul thing. And man, those guys pick it up just like that.
Yeah.
And they were like, man, we're all sitting there smiling because
Yeah.
it's rock, you know what I mean? It's like Sly and the Family Stone or something.
Mhm.
But they're like, but we're all looking at each other like, but is anybody going to believe this is Babylon AD? Even though it's
Right.
heavy rock and guitar, it's like really funky and shit. You know what I mean? And soulful. And sometimes we'll do it sound check. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll pull out Marvin Gaye. What's going on? But the way we do it, it's like, wow, that's a trip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we've been talking about that lately. Maybe putting an album out of just cover songs, just the way we would do them.
Right.
Even though people would just think they're going to hear like a hammer swings down or that kind of sound. Maybe you're going to get the guitar sound like that,
Right.
but you're going to get a totally different kind of a sound. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You may sing it with
it
a
just
more.
depends on how adventurous the fans are, because we're really we're ready to go anywhere, really. You know?
I think that would be fantastic. As you were talking about it, that's the first thing that popped into my head. Babylon AD plays, and that's fill in the blank. Blues or soul or R&B or whatever it is.
Yeah,
You could
yeah.
play a whole
We've
slew
been
of
we've
those
been
things.
talking about it. So I don't know if it's going to happen or not, because
Right.
we're working on another album right now. We're working on the material for the next album at the same time.
Good. We
But
don't have
I
to
know
wait
this.
7 years.
I do know this though. The band's going to keep going. We're not taking a big long break like we used to.
Okay.
We're
Cool.
going to keep on motoring on, motoring on, motoring on. You know what I mean?
That's
And
great to hear,
I'm going
man.
to keep on releasing stuff. And me and Danny got something going on, so it's going to be pretty adventurous the next 4 or 5 years, man. You
Oh
know?
man, I'm looking forward to it. I'll tell you
Yeah, I
that.
am too.
See where it's going. And I mean, you talked about it. You said, you don't like to repeat yourself. So churning out
No.
these things and doing these different things, I'm sure keeps the sort of creative juices and everything flowing for you. So you don't feel like you're getting stagnant just playing the same set list every night. It's
Yeah,
changing
I
things up,
mean,
getting into the studio, doing this, putting this out, then adding those songs to a set or going doing a show with different material.
yeah. You got to try to keep it fresh. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And you know, I don't know. That's the way I like to think of it, anyways. And when I write a song, like I'll kind of know what box it fits in. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? If it fits in, is it gonna be a Derek Davis solo song, or is this gonna be a Babylon AD song? Or is this, as the song's about 75% done, I kind of know, well, I don't think this would really fit Babylon AD, so I'm not even gonna show it to the guys. You know what I mean? But I'll save it for me or whatever, or
Right.
vice versa. I'll think I start out writing something for me as it's going along, and then all of a sudden I'll throw some heavy stuff in there. Go, wait a minute, man, this is Babylon AD, man. This isn't a pop record or something. Maybe that I'm writing, or something different. This is Babylon AD. And that's kind of the way, like when I wrote Face of God.
Yeah.
And that's going to be our next single, by the way. That was on the verge of like, is this Babylon AD, or is this a song for me? But then once I put that heavy part in there in
Right.
the mid section with all the lead, I was like, no, this is Babylon AD, man. I may be playing the nice tinkly stuff and
Right.
singing kind of nice on the verses, but when it hits, it smacks you, man. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
So it's
It's
pretty
interesting
interesting,
how that
right?
can happen where you, as you said, you're writing something, maybe you think it's for one project or another, and then yet out of that grows a whole different thing. You're not even knowing where it's going to go, where it's going to lead, and it just sort of comes out and
Yeah.
develops. And before you know, you're like, oh, it's this, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of like how I wrote the blues album and the soul album. I didn't sit down to write it like that. I
Mhm.
just started noticing, like, over a couple year period, I had a collection of like maybe 6 or 7 songs. It sounded like a soul record. And I
Yeah.
was like, wow, all I really got to do right now is just write about another 3 or 4 more that are in this vein of these
Right.
songs I have, and I got an album. The same thing, the blues thing. I had 4 or 5 really cool blues things, but they weren't Babylon A.D. So it's like, all right, next month or so, all I'm going to do is concentrate on, listen to ZZ Top and, and okay, boom, I got a blues album. You know what I mean? That kind
Yeah.
of thing. But I got to kind of have enough material to say where that's going to go. And right now, like, for instance, I have enough material right now for me to release another just another rock pop album if
Mhm.
I want to. You know what I mean?
Right.
Uh, but I got to master it and mix it and things like that. But I'm it's hard because I don't want to release like 3 or 4 things in one year like the Beatles or something. It's, you know,
Yeah. It'll
you
get
get
long.
you get too lost. So
Right.
I think 2 things a year is
Yeah.
good. Maybe something for me and Danny, and then
Right.
Babylon AD. Keep going like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. When you're putting an album together, you're gathering the songs. Are you in your mind sort of thinking these all have a similar feel, they go together? Or is it more about the time that you wrote it in? Like all of these were written around the same time and they're
No,
like
no, no.
together.
Uh some songs even off this album, like White Hot Bullet on this album here on Rome Wasn't Built in a Day. I
Right.
wrote that song probably 5 years ago,
Oh, wow. Okay.
but you could tell it was a Babylon AD song.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's where it just fit. It's got the big
Right.
chords, it's got the grinding guitars,
Hmm.
it's got a cool riff, Bangle the Bells type of style riff or whatever. So you're like, well, that's a Babylon AD song.
Right.
And then and the band already had maybe 4 or 5 songs written. Pain, we had that one written,
Yeah, that's a great
uh as demos,
one. Hmm.
you know. So we probably had about 7 or 8 songs that were kind of demoed before we even started thinking about making an album, because we did them pre-COVID.
Yeah.
I Will Never Break Again, that was already in our pocket. We've had that one in our pocket for probably 6 years.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But COVID hit and kind of screwed everything else. And then we take that big break. And like I said, and then I did a couple albums on my own.
Hmm.
And then Jamie wanted to leave the band. Rob had a medical problem that he couldn't carry on anymore. Eric played with us for a little while, Jamie's brother.
Right.
And then
And he passed
he
away.
passed away. So
Yeah.
it was, a lot of things happened in about 2 or 3 year period of time. And then when Tom hit us back last year and said, hey, are you thinking about putting a new album? I know you guys were doing demos a few years ago. It was just like, yes, we're ready to go now, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, you had some time too to recharge your batteries in there with the whole COVID thing and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious, what would the album have sounded like had you stayed straight on it, or in this case, you took a little break, you went and did some other things, recharged the batteries, and then it comes out. We'll never know, but it's just those are always interesting things. I think when you look at the history of what develops into an album, what played into it and what gave it its sound.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we actually had 18 songs recorded, demoed for this album. And some of the songs that we left off this album are definitely going to go on the next album because they're really good songs. But it was almost kind of like we had too many to choose from. And
That's
we
not
didn't,
a bad thing.
it's not a bad thing, but it was kind of weird because you say, okay, if we know for a fact we're going to do 2 albums no matter what, maybe 3 albums no matter what, do we put all the best songs on the first album out of these 18, every single one?
Yeah.
Or do we go, you know what? This song might be an 8, and this song was a 9.5, but let's save this one for the other album because we already got 3 9.5s on this one.
Right.
That
Right.
kind of thing in our minds, as we're
Right.
talking, and we had a lot of people help us with our selection of what they thought was the best songs. And we got outside input from people, and we had them rate the songs from a 1 to 10.
Okay.
So we could look at a song and go, okay, White Hot Bullet, let's see, 8, you have 5 people, 8, 7, 9, 6, 5.5, 8. Okay, that equals out to 7.5.
Right.
I think that's good enough to make the album. If
Yeah.
anything got less than a 7, it'd be like, no, 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 we're not going to put that on the album.
Right.
Maybe we got to work on it a little bit more. Or we'd have people comment,
Mhm.
give us a paragraph and a comment why you like the song, don't like the song, or something about the song, and then you might get something like, man, this chorus is awesome, but the verse is kind of this and that. And if you got that from like say 2 out of 5 people, you know
Right.
that look, I think we're gonna have to work on the verse here because
Mhm.
obviously this regular fan people are picking this up.
Right.
They're not musicians,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. I mean, when you're sitting in it, writing it, working on it with the band, there might be a little bit of having like blinders on because you're right in the
Right.
middle of it. And then you give
Yeah.
it to people who haven't heard it and they're your
Yeah.
fans and they know the sound and what your albums are like and they're listening to it fresh,
Yeah.
you've heard this before, they're going to pick up on stuff that maybe you don't. And it's kind of like you had a bunch of producers almost,
Well,
you know,
yeah, and it really helped us out because we never did that before. Before it was like, well, you give the demos to your record company,
right,
and then they'll sit around and tell you, and they're like, and you're like, well, what? 2 guys from the A&R department listen to us, and we got to fucking listen to what they say.
right,
They might not. Who knows what they're fucking thinking? You know what I mean?
right.
The next album, I mean, we might call you up and say, hey, dude, you just can't give this out, but
Yeah, I
here's
will
here's what
take
we're thinking.
it.
Give us a ratings, And if you came back and said, "Oh, Derek, I don't know, man, that one song sucks," I'd give it a 2. You know, well then that song is not making the album.
Right, right. Well, definitely keep that in mind. I'd be more than happy to lend out my services to take a listen to some early stuff.
Yeah,
That
you
would
know
be
what?
wild.
Well, these would be demos for the next album.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So,
Uh, what's funny is there was
mhm,
one song that I thought was a pretty damn good song, and the other guys did too.
yeah.
And we got like out of 5 people, we got like 6, 7, 7. I think we got 1 8. And then somebody said 1. I hate this fucking song.
Oh. You should throw out the high number and the low number though. It's like this person maybe is too big of a fan, and this person they're having an off night.
Yeah. And it was just funny, like 1. I hate this fucking song. It sucks. I was like, oh shit. We're not
Yeah,
putting that
right,
on the album. We're not putting that one on anybody's album.
right, right. You'll work on that one.
But we thought it was a pretty good song. This is pretty, it was like, yeah, it's pretty good. It needs some work, but so it was weird.
Yeah. All right. Well, as we start to wrap it up here, I got one last question for you. And I've been wearing this shirt for the exact reason, the Robocop. And you guys had the song Kid
No
Goes
way.
Wild on
Wow, what a
Robocop
trip.
too. And I was
Yeah.
just curious how that came about.
Well, we were approached by Orion Pictures,
Mhm.
and they wanted to use the song "Kid Goes Wild" in the movie,
Right.
and they said, we'll pay for the video and we'll pay for all the promotion for it and everything like that. So it was kind of like a no brainer. You can't really say no.
Oh, right.
No, that's okay. You know what I mean? You,
Mhm.
you got to say yes to that. And especially the record company, like, what, you're going to pay for the video? $75,000. You know what I mean? And we'll have RoboCop in it. They give you this big spiel, and
Mhm.
and you're like, yeah, I'm on board. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And
that's
since
basically how that came about, man. Orion Pictures, they approached us. They loved the song "Kid Goes Wild" and they wanted to use it in the movie.
if that's what turned me on to you guys. I went and saw the movie. They played it, I think, a little bit in the middle of it or something, but it was the
Yeah.
closing track at the very end of it. I walked out singing it. I went
Wow,
straight
what
to
a
the
trip.
record store and bought the album.
No way. Yeah, that's crazy. It was also used in the trailers, like on TV and stuff. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Exactly. So I mean, that was such great promotion, but I have this memory in my mind of having
Wow.
heard that song and it stuck in my head, only hearing it the one time at the end, in full. But
Yeah.
the lyrics were already in my head enough that I was able to go to the record store, give them the line, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's Babylon A.D."
Wow, what a
And so
trip.
I got your debut album, and then later on, I heard "Desperate," thinking it
Yeah.
was your song, but then that was
That really.
Baton Rouge. So it's
Yeah.
but just kind of interesting how all that goes. And all in
You
all,
want to know? You want to know a funny story about Baton Rouge?
yeah,
Lance, the guitar player,
right, yeah,
and Kelly,
yeah,
when they first got together, Lance was a singer and Kelly was a guitar player.
really,
And Lance could fucking sing.
yeah.
He
Why
really
why
can,
the
man.
switch?
And then when they started writing songs and stuff with Jack Pawnee, it just started developing. I think Kelly might be a little bit better, that kind of thing. And they just kind of reverse roles.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't think hardly anybody knows that, but I was there back in the day in New Jersey when it was all going down. You know what I mean? So it's a
Yeah.
trip.
So yeah, you mentioned that. So you're from New Jersey? 'Cause-
No, it's just that I did a lot of songwriting with Jack, and they
oh, I
and
see.
they were around, and you know, Jack wrote a lot of songs with Skid Row and Bon Jovi, and a lot of guys from Jersey and stuff like that, Alice Cooper, and things like that.
Yeah,
So you get to hear a lot of crazy stories too. I heard a lot of
I
crazy.
bet. All right, Derek, I appreciate your time on this. Thanks so much for joining in on it. And certainly, all you guys watching out there, definitely go check out the brand new Babylon A.D. album, Rome Wasn't Built in a Day. You said you got a new single that's getting ready to drop on it.
Grace of God, that'll be coming out in about that's actually going to come out in about a month and a half from now. Sometimes
Okay.
Love and Hell is doing really good at radio.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to check us out, they can just go to babylonadband.com or join us on Facebook, man, or Instagram, and become one of our friends and just follow us if you want to, people want to go check out gigs and stuff. We have a pretty good promo team right now. Press people that are helping us do stuff that we, as people that are writing songs and so we're too busy to do that stuff. But we have people helping us now, something we didn't have before.
Yeah, and an owner of the record label, Tom Paris, he's the one that put
Yeah.
you and I in touch for doing this. So,
Yeah.
everyone's on board with it. And it's really cool to see that it's all the way from the very top to your promotion team. It's not
Yeah.
just, uh, you know, sign
Yeah.
you, you're done. It's over kind of a thing. The whole label.
Yeah. There's a lot of bands doing that. I noticed lately. I mean, ever since our album came out in May, I've already seen probably, I'm not exaggerating, at least probably 7 or 8 bands that have came and dropped one single and are gone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm sure you've noticed it too. I'm not going to name names, but I've
absolutely.
noticed, I've noticed a lot of bands. It's one single and one video, and bam, I haven't heard nothing from them since May or June.
Well, in most cases, what I'm seeing is the bands will do the upfront promotion, the album
Yeah,
drops, and you don't hear anything about it after that. And they might
I'm
play one
saying.
song live in concert, if even that. So hearing that you're
Yeah,
playing songs in concert on it, you're still dropping
yeah.
singles, even though the album's already out. So meaning you're promoting it, you're carrying it on. I'm seeing
Well,
this stuff pop up regularly, and it's keeping the album in my mind, and I own it. But I like
yeah.
that because it makes me feel like the album has a longer life to it.
Not just that. You remember when we were kids and a person released an album, that fucking thing lived for a good year at least, sometimes two years. And
Exactly.
sometimes it took a year before
Right.
anything would happen.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Uh, so that's the way we think of it. Like, why just that's what on our last album on Frontiers, that's what it kind of felt to us. We had like 6 weeks,
Yeah.
bam, and we're done. That's all the promotion they put into us, and okay, it's over.
Right.
It's like just throw something against the wall, and if it doesn't stick within the first, batter, get the next one out. You know what I mean? But this is a quite a bit different beast now because because we think we have really, really, really super great songs on this one. Just as good as the first album,
Mhm.
and so that gives us a lot more confidence that we than we had before on other stuff. Well, we knew we had some good songs,
Right.
but uh, maybe say to yourself, "Well, I probably could have wrote a few more better ones." But this album is really, really super, right into their pocket with the first 2 albums. So, and we, like I said, we have some press people working for us. We have radio people working for us. We have management, something we haven't had in a long time.
Yeah,
So,
that's great.
yeah, it's you need all that kind of stuff, man, because I'm not a social
Me too.
whatever it is
Yeah. Social media.
guru, and all these bands need this shit nowadays.
Right. Right.
You got to stay in front of people's eyeballs unless you're just gone, and
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
might take
And
a year.
yeah, and you know what, man, you're welcome over here on my channel anytime. If you've got a new project or something you're doing, or you're heading off to a show or whatever, man, let me know. We'll get you
Okay,
on to talk about it. I'm happy to get it out there for you guys. I've loved your
awesome.
band since I first found them back in 1990, and being able to talk to you here has been great. So thank you so much for that.
Okay,
And
thank you, brother.
everyone watching here, definitely head on over to all the different social media sites that Derek talked about, Instagram, Facebook, and everything else, and check out the new album. Whether you do it via streaming or you go pick up a cool physical copy, man, do it because it is a great album.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, everyone, take care, have a good one, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Okay,
Bye.
ma'am. Bye bye.